your name right?
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think that's it. We are on our way to Matewan, West Virginia, which is where the Matewan massacre happened, which kind of add fuel to the fire that is the Cold Wars. Just want me to give some like backstory or wait, well,
yeah, I can jump in.
as far as like my background goes, by the way, I've lived in West Virginia my whole life, 32 years old, so 32 years. I was actually born in Matewan. Moved away in 1997 when I was 8. But my family is all from here. Like, this history has like been ingrained into me. This is, if you don't know, the Cold Wars is the largest armed labor uprising, I think, in the history of the world. Definitely in the history of America. So yeah, I mean, is there anything else you'd like to know before we start?
Yeah, I'll jump in a little bit. And hi, everybody. I'm Brad. Thank you for tuning in to the show. Be sure to check out each of our stuff at twitch.tv/Freemz, FREEMZ, and twitch.tv/Touring News, TOURING News. I am 31 years old. I was born in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. However, quickly moved back to Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania, where my father, grandmother, grandfather, mother, they were kind of all from that region. Mount Carmel, a little similarities to West Virginia. Coal mining town, very boom-bust cycle. Had a lot of kind of decay, a lot of people move away from the areas, a lot of population decline, and some definite rural similarities between northern Appalachia and southern Appalachia. So I was lucky enough to come down here with Freemz. We're going to be doing a little driving vlogcast to talk about the Cold Wars, talk about Matewan, lead it all the way forward to kind of like the modern present day of what's taking place in West Virginia and how and why we got together this week specifically. I think conceptually, Freemz and myself thought that doing a nice drive like this, being able to see the state for the good, the bad, the beautiful,
You're about to get a good view here.
is really just a great way to do it. So I think with going into the good view, we're just going to give it back to Freemz to kind of start. So like, where did it begin? West Virginia. How did the state even begin? If you want to,
That's actually interesting in itself. West Virginia is the only state that was created during the Civil War. The western part of Virginia, it was all Virginia at one point, broke off to be part of the Union as opposed to the Confederacy. This is something they've been trying to do for a while. People in this part of the state were always more poor, always forgotten, kind of treated like not the same by the state government in other parts of Virginia. So they were promised statehood for joining the Union. Like, as weird as it sounds, slavery, it's not that it just wasn't an issue in West Virginia because people here were poor, like they didn't own slaves here. But it was mostly for statehood. Obviously, I felt like if mining was bigger then, this would probably still be Virginia, because they wouldn't let those resources go,
Yeah, when did the coal mines really like begin to develop in West Virginia? When was the mining of coal really beginning to get here? And then how quickly was like the influx of population growth, and where were people coming from, and was everything coal?
Yeah, like the coal has like always been here, and like mining has always been here in general, whether it just be like acid mines, coal mines. But they saw, a real big boom with the Industrial Revolution, as you could mine a lot more coal once you had machines to do it. So yeah, that's probably when it got its like real first big growth. Back then, miners were treated poorly. They didn't get paid money. They got paid in what's called scrip. We'll actually see that at the museum. They'll have it there. They could only use it at company stores. They could only live in company housing. Yeah, so.
Yeah, was that like across most of West Virginia and the town that we're going to, Matewan? Was this a company town? Are we going to be passing potentially through any of the company towns? And what's
Yeah, there will be like several like company towns as we go through. I think we'll see them on our route. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've made this trip.
Yeah, this trip is we're taking about a 2.5 hour drive, just down through West Virginia, all the way down. I guess we're going so close to the southern tip of the state that the nearest grocery store is going to be in Kentucky.
Yeah, like you'll be able to see Kentucky from where we're at. Like you'll be able to Kentucky's right there. It's right on the border.
Yeah. So when was Matewan really like beginning to become like a bigger town? How's the timeline for there looking?
It never really was a big town. It's still a small town, like very small. I would say I think less than 1,000 people. But it's had several things throughout history that's kind of gave it a name. Bloody Mingo. If you've heard of the Hatfield McCoys, the Hatfields lived in Mingo County, or what is now Mingo County. And then obviously the Matewan Massacre, which we'll get into that too, probably more in depth than the Hatfield McCoys. But for most people know what the Hatfield McCoys are. It is a very long, bloody family feud. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Some people are wondering, what's going on. I'm just doing a tiny little camera adjustment here of I kind of just want to get it a bit more forward facing. I want you all to have a nice visual time, so it's worth taking the little adjustments that are gonna give it that little bit of extra something. Okay, so yeah, back to kind of how you were.
Yeah, so it was a long, bloody family feud. A lot of people died. They ended up having to bring in the National Guard to like kind of deal with it. Still a lot of Hatfields and McCoys live in the area. I mean, my family is related to the Hatfields. I believe my dad said Devil Anse Hatfield, who was the leader of the Hatfield family, is like his third great uncle.
So you had some family that worked in coal mines for a while too.
Oh yeah, a long line of coal miners. I think my great grandpa, my dad, myself, I worked in the coal mines for 4 years, on and off.
What were some of the different positions your family members did in the mines?
Oh, a lot. There's a lot of, like, my dad was the lad. Remember?
Maybe go this way. For us novices that have never been down in a coal mine, what are things that we should know that we just kind of take for granted?
I mean, it's dark. I don't think people realize how. I'm just trying to think about like the things that like I didn't realize my first time going underground is how wet it is under there. Like sometimes you'll have water up to your knees. Sometimes it'll be dry. It just depends on the mine. I've worked in coal mines that were underneath the Ohio River that were very, very wet. I've worked in mines that have been up and running on top of mountains for, decades that were dry and high and tall. Some mines I worked in are 5 feet tall. The worst mine you can work in is one that's, in my opinion, is one that is too low to stand up, but the water's too high to crawl. It's pretty poor working conditions, you know. Very hard work.
Yeah, and how far were you driving each way to work each day?
It depends on which mine. Usually, sometimes an hour and a half one way.
And then how long of a shift are you putting in?
Anywhere from 8 to 12 hours.
And how many shifts a week?
Usually 5. Sometimes, if you had to do a belt move, when I was on a move crew, sometimes 7. It just depends. Usually 5 or 6. You could volunteer though. You could work 7 days if you wanted to.
So, back in, I suppose, maybe the 50s or 60s,
Mm-hmm.
a coal miner could probably work in the mine and support a family of 4 or 5, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's when coal mining was going through a big boom too. So they were paying a lot. You could work all the hours you wanted.
When did that begin to kind of like fade away, where it wasn't really able to give as much as it was?
If you can get a job in the coal mines now, you still can. You still make a lot of money.
Oh, you still do?
Yeah, there's just not a lot of the jobs available. You're not making quite as much as you used to, from what I hear from guys that are working there now, but you're still making, you know, close to $20 an hour, which for the work, you know, doesn't seem like much. But considering minimum wage in West Virginia is $8.75, it's a good bit. It's a lot cheaper to live in West Virginia too.
So you did some belt moves, you did some mining. When you go down in a mine, what's in your hands? What functions are your hands doing when you're down in a mine?
Depends on your job. Like when I was doing belt moves.
What do they start greenhorn miners on?
Again, it just depends. A lot of times they'll get started on a move crew. They're not operating machinery really during that time period. They're not allowed to. They're called red hats. So like whenever you're starting a coal mine, you are a red hat. You have to wear a red hard hat. And you have to be within like yelling distance of a black hat or a white hat. Black hats are experienced miners, white hats are foremans. I forget what electricians are. I think blue. It's been a while. Electrician in a coal mine too is more like when they are electricians, but they're like a mechanic basically, because everything runs on electric. You can't have a lot. I mean, there are mines that allow for gas-powered machinery, but most of them do not, because you kind of want to keep your airflow clean.
So, are you running huge extension cables from?
Massive, yeah. That's part of the thing you do in a move crew. You have these things called power boxes, and you hook cables into the power box. During the move crew, you move up the power box, because as the mine's going in, you know, they're cutting into the ground.
Always trying to get the camera a little better. Keep going. Sorry for the interrupt.
You're fine. But yeah, that's what a move crew is though. So as you're cutting the mine, you have to move, because when they're cutting it, they take scoops and put the coal into a belt line that runs all the way out of the mine. So when you do a move, you have to move up the power box, you have to add more belt line, you have to add more belt to the belt in order to extend it. It's hard work. You got to do it all in one night too. Move crew is always a midnight shift job. They call it the hoot owl.
Damn, so were your hours like varied and changing all the different times?
No, you always work midnights throughout the week. Whenever you're not doing moves, you're cleaning, shoveling, doing anything that can just like help with the production crews to make their jobs easier. So yeah, it's tough work.
Okay, and then if you're down in the mine and you're using electrical tools or so forth, what kind of things are you using? Wow, look at yeah. What are you using?
That way.
We can see off in the distance a nice little town to the left here. Maybe 3,000 or 4,000 people
that's
in a little valley in between some mountains.
This is the exit I would have got off of to go to work. So, from where my house was, I showed you the exit from where I grew up. So from there all the way to here.
Wow.
Yeah. This is a pretty long job.
I would say so. I have some kind of solar flare on the lens. It's clean. Independent and amateur work, everybody, has independent and amateur moments. So thank you for that little bear with. Have we corrected? It's still got a bit of it. That's a little better. Okay, so we learned just how a little rough it is down there. To return back to Matewan and where we're going to. We're driving down to talk about a minor uprising. So how did it all? What were some of the processes? What were the steps? What were the escalations?
So, the UMWA, which is the United Mine Workers of America, had already started. They were trying to get miners in West Virginia to join. They started in Kentucky.
What year is this?
This is around the 1920s. So, this has been pre-1920.
Okay.
With all this, because it kind of leads up to what happened on, I think it was May 19th, 1920.
Okay.
So the workers that were working at the mines in Matewan decided to strike. So they go on strike. The coal company hired the Baldwin Phelps Agency, which are kind of like Pinkertons basically, to evict the miners from their company houses. And obviously, a lot of the people here were not going to put up with it. So they fought back to the point where the Pinkertons showed up to the town of Matewan.
Okay, who were the Pinkertons?
Not the Pinkertons, sorry, the Baldwin Phelps Agency.
Or I'm sorry, what were they? What was the Baldwin Phelps Agency?
They are, I guess, I would call them mercenaries almost, like hired guns.
Okay. Were the Matewan workers in a union at this point?
Yes. Yeah, they had decided to join the UMWA. That's why they went on strike.
Okay.
At this point, they had a camp set up. They were fighting off scabs. So yeah, there was a lot of fighting going on between that led up to the big battle in Matewan. People getting shot, dogs getting poisoned, stuff like that. Yeah, there's a really good movie about it called Matewan, actually. Came out in the 80s. It'd be worth checking out too. It's a good, dramatized version of what happened. What's cool too is, and something I don't think it's talked about often enough, is right before all this went down, they had a trainload of black people to come work in the coal mines, and they, even though it had just got there, immediately took up arms with the miners, which is I just don't feel like that part gets talked about enough either. But were
these stories told at all in the
get talked about, but like, I don't ever remember it being talked about at my elementary school away from May 1. But I would say in like coal country, like Boone County, Logan County, like the counties close to it, they got talked about. And then I don't think we ever covered it in high school though. It was only like always like when I was younger.
Yeah, I don't ever remember hearing about it in my schools. So
Yeah.
I just wonder if you're out there somewhere in a comment section or, you know, whatever, would like to hear, were you ever taught about this moment? Did you ever learn it in any of your schools? And when did you learn about it, or when didn't you learn about it? So, okay, they're bringing in the mercenaries. The workers have lived in a company town. They're paid in company script. They're trying to unionize. The coal mine is trying to evict them. The busload of other workers were brought in. The black workers said, no, we're going to pick up arms and we're going with you.
Yeah.
So you said at one point this is at least one of the largest armed uprisings in, if not the world, at least the United States. Were they all armed kind of before?
We haven't got to the armed uprising part yet.
Okay.
That happens after what happened in May 1.
Okay.
We're actually, once we'll be near where the big battle took place against the UMWA and the coal company, where they had to, I mean, the army came to fight the coal miners.
Wow.
Yeah, they brought in the army. Or military, I don't know if it was the army. Some type of military force in these mountains that we're driving through right now. There's a Battle of Blair Mountain will be right in that area, so I didn't even think about that. But yeah.
Well, another thing that we'll have to keep going through. So,
Okay.
okay, take us back to me.
So yeah, so what happened is Baldwin Phelps show up to the town of Matewan, and not only did the miners fight them, the sheriff of Matewan took arms with the miners, fought with them. The mayor of Matewan actually died in this fight. He was one of the 7 Baldwin Phelps agency members got killed, and 3 miners.
Wow.
What's messed up too, so the sheriff is a man named Sid Hatfield. Called him Smiling Sid because he had gold teeth. He used to carry around 2 Colt revolvers, long Colts. That's what he was known for. Those revolver pistols. And he's kind of a character. He actually had to go to trial. Man, there's so much messed up stuff through this whole thing too, because the coal companies had kind of control of the media. Sid Hatfield, after the mayor died, his name was Cabell Testerman, I think was his name. I'll actually look that up. Sid Hatfield married his wife afterwards. And the coal company tried to say that Sid Hatfield was the one that killed the mayor, not them, so he could marry his wife. The only reason why Sid Hatfield married his wife is so she couldn't be taken advantage of as a single woman during that time, during this, fight. Sid Hatfield ended up having to go to trial for this, and before he even made the trial, he got assassinated on the courthouse steps. So this is all from the coal company. This is like how hard they fought to try to, exploit people. It's very dangerous work. A lot of people don't realize this either. Like they think that this is like real old stuff. People were still getting paid in company money, script, company housing in the 70s. Like this went on since the 70s. Or until the 70s. So, after the Matewan massacre, Mother Jones and the UMWA and all of them came up to march with the people here. This led to the Battle of Blair Mountain, where the coal miners fought the coal company in the mountain. The coal company had like Gatling guns, like big, hand crank Gatling guns. And the miners were just doing guerrilla warfare with their, Paw-Paw's rifle,
So how many miners were there that took up arms?
During the Blair Mountain?
Or during where you're saying that, it was Gatling guns versus...
Okay, let me look that up, actually. It's a good question. A lot. Because it wasn't just... This battle went on for days. August 25th to September 2nd.
Wow, it's a week of a battle.
It was 13,000 compared to 27,000.
13,000?
Yeah.
Miners.
Yeah.
13,000. How many mines did people come from to join?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 10,000 coal miners and 3,000 lawmen that were with them, called the Logan Defenders. So yeah. So about 50. They say they're looking at the casualties list here. 50 to 100 miners were killed. 985 were arrested. But it was so unpopular that they didn't serve long sentences because people started romanticizing the miners at this point. And these miners were like putting up a fight too, man. Like during this strike, they wanted to stop a coal load from being delivered, so they stopped the load on the bridge and took dynamite and blew the whole fucking bridge up. Oh, excuse my language, but yeah, they blew the whole bridge up. There's still coal in the bottom of that river there from that explosion.
How near to that river do you think we're going to be driving by today?
Not very close. I think this is in McDowell County. It'll be a few hours off. But, yeah, and like stuff like this, for a long time they did try to suppress it. To the point, they tried to do mountaintop removal on Blair Mountain. They had for a long time, the UMWA wanted to put a placard there, and the state wouldn't let them. It's a lot of labor conscious suppression,
Yeah. What, as the battle's going on, as I guess it's coming down to the end on September 2nd, have there been negotiations? Are they trying to talk about terms? What are some of the demands of the miners? What are they saying? Give us this and maybe we won't do what we're doing right now anymore.
Yeah, the miners just wanted money. They wanted actual money.
That was it.
Yeah, to not have to live in coal camps and stuff like that. Like something that should just be basic labor rights,
Yeah. And to fast forward, I suppose, 100 years plus 1 and 1 month after the 1920s, we potentially are returning to company towns and company scripts and company currencies once again, as Facebook tries to buy land, as Amazon tries to build and buy land. So
doesn't Microsoft own more, or Bill Gates own more farmland than any other person in America?
Yes, that as well. Yeah, so, the reason that you have to continue to discuss history, talk about events like this, cover events like this, is they do repeat, they will repeat, and they'll continue to, if we don't learn, if we don't take lessons, if we don't, take the wisdom of the people that came before us too.
Yeah, absolutely. like, it's weird when I hear people talk about those things like it's a good idea. It's like, we've been through this.
What happened towards the end of Blair Mountain?
The Army showed up. And honestly, when the Army first showed up, so a lot of the guys, a lot of the miners were veterans. So when the Army showed up initially, they thought they were there to help them. And they were mistaken. It kind of blindsided them. So they ultimately had to lay down arms, you know? Like, they can't fight the Army, right? But this brought so much media attention that there was such a public outcry that they actually, in a lot of places, were allowed to unionize and finally get some better rights as workers, you know, getting paid money, benefits, things like that.
So they did actually get a few concessions and things started to improve a little bit.
Yeah, it was the public outcry. And like I said, like, almost 1,000 people got arrested.
Yeah, I wanted to return to where did all of the miners come from? You said Matewan was a small town.
Yeah.
So were miners coming from all over?
All over West Virginia. Yeah, all over West Virginia and Kentucky. Yeah, they were coming from all over. I mean, Mother Jones was there.
How? Okay, so this is 1920. There's not that many. Were people coming in cars at this point? What was...
People listen. So you know where we did the March on Manchin?
Yes.
People marched from there all the way to Logan. We're not even to Logan yet. On foot, horseback. Not joking. They marched all the way to Logan. Yeah. I know.
Can you just say that part again?
Yeah, they marched from Charleston, West Virginia to Logan.
Logan of where?
West Virginia.
And for people who
we're in Logan.
Might not know, how many miles is this? And I'll convert to kilometers for the international audience.
I'm so bad at, like, let's just say, like, if you're driving, it would take about an hour.
So we're looking at about 60 miles or
Yeah.
potentially, 90 kilometers is the march that we're talking about. And so they're risking losing their job back at their mines.
Well, they were already unionized, so they'd have a hard time losing it, I guess, at that point.
Okay. So was it all union members that came to
Union members? There was also, like, different law enforcement that was on the side of the miners. There's also law enforcement on the other side as well with the coal companies, along with the Baldwin Phelps, stuff like that. So,
are there any? Is there much photography from the events?
Not a whole lot. I'd say it's probably hard to. Well, photography was a little bit different back then.
Yeah, that's.
You don't want to stand in the middle of a gunfight trying to take a picture.
Right. No, I didn't know if there were like photos of the marches.
Yeah, absolutely. There's photos of like Mother Jones marching. And we're going to a museum up here too, so you'll get to see some of that.
I don't know if we will make it with time, but we'll see if they're able to.
Oh yeah, I didn't even see what time they closed.
Another incredible just mountain of West Virginia. Is the whole state basically like this?
Yeah, the entire state lies within the Appalachian Mountain Range. It's interesting because there are no actual mountains in West Virginia. There's nothing tall enough to be considered a mountain, but it's called the Mountain State because it lies completely within a mountain range.
And you're the mountaineers.
And we're the mountaineers.
This is excellent. Thank you for coming on this trip.
Yeah.
And sharing all these perspectives and the history.
The state motto is "Mountaineers are always free." Well, it's Latin, but it translates to that from Latin.
Mountaineers are always free.
Yeah. It's interesting when you read like West Virginia history. when they, Lewis and Clark were surveying America. When they hit West Virginia, they were, taken back at how beautiful it was, but also like they knew it was going to be a treacherous hike. Could you imagine having to walk through this? Like, could you imagine like coming up on this and just being like, my God?
Because there would be no road in.
Yeah.
You can maybe have like a 4-foot wide path or something.
If you look at the sides of like, they literally had to carve through the mountains to make roads.
Yes.
Like, if you look at these hills, you can see where they had to carve through the stone to make these roads.
Yeah, I cannot imagine.
It's interesting how they did. If you look and you see the lines going up and down, that's where they drilled holes down into the rock. A lot of places would drop dynamite in it even to just blow the hillside off.
Man, what stunning chasms on each side of this road. So your family did some coal mining. We're driving down to Matewan to find out what happened. How did the Matewan workers go back into the work? So did they get actual money pay, the week afterwards? Were they able to go back to their jobs? The ones that were arrested and released, were they able to go back to their jobs? You said they served short sentences. So what started to go on?
They definitely got their jobs back. I'm gonna have to look it up. It's some of this stuff, like, that's a good question. I don't get asked often, and I feel like I used to know it.
Another incredible cliff cut, and a nice shot for everyone to see. As we transition then away from Matewan, through you back into the present, there's a lot of pain that exists in West Virginia, and we went to a Poor People's Campaign Moral March on Joe Manchin in Charleston, West Virginia, yesterday, June 14th, 2021, marching from Magic Island, Charleston, underneath the underpass, up, I believe, like Kanawha or K Road, to the Lottery Building to sign petitions for Joe Manchin to vote for the people, vote in favor of the For the People Act. And, some of the stories that were told there were the coal mines have closed, our young kids they're moving away, they're having to go do this, they're joining the military, they're dying as opioids ravage through the nation. So you ended up, you worked in coal mines, your family does some moonshine distilling, you now have kind of like taken a coal coating boot camp to become, the complete West Virginian that you are. You've been doing a lot of fighting for justice your entire life. When we finish off with Matewan, I want to transition into how the state has just been abandoned in infrastructure and in public eye and focus and media coverage. Yet now, as Manchin wields, as one person at the march yesterday said, we used to have Moscow Mitch, and he was just the obstructionist for the Democratic Party, but now we have Moscow Manchin, who is also the obstructionist for the Democratic Party. The pain in the state is still here, and the fight is still here in people too. So to kick it back to you, as we travel across the bridge back to 100 years ago, where are we at with Matewan?
Where are we at with Matewan?
Yeah, what happened after? Are they getting their payment back? Are they getting their jobs back? How's the town with it?
So it seems like a lot of stuff started going in their favor, like by the next year, like a year later. A lot of everyone that went to trial for when they got arrested were acquitted. obviously there's been more strikes since then. People are still always fighting for more because the company's not usually willing to give more. Maximize profits, whatever. It still never got to where it should have been. I consider, it's still a victory that what happened, but like ultimately the richest people in West Virginia are coal barons, Our governor, Jim Justice, is a billionaire. We elected him. People in West Virginia, it's interesting to talk about because I feel like they're like the quintessential like voting against their own best interest. This state was like a Democrat state for so long and just continually got left behind by them. I feel like it really opened up the door for someone like Donald Trump to come in, and it's easy to lie to people when the other side isn't even coming to talk to you. Hillary Clinton came here once. Bernie Sanders came here a good bit, and people here like Bernie. Bernie actually beat Hillary Clinton here in the primary, and I think that's largely due in part to him actually coming here. When Hillary did come here the one time, she said some things that scared people here. She said that we're going to put a lot of coal companies out of business. It's kind of clipped out of context because she immediately went to talking about bringing in new industries, but though the state's history is so like ingrained in coal, we're indoctrinated into thinking that's what we need here. See where some mountaintop removal happened up there.
What is mountaintop removal?
It's where they blow the top of a mountain off to get the coal. the easy way, I guess. Just blow the whole top of a mountain off.
Cue V for Vendetta. End of movie. Explosions hit.
Yeah, that's basically it. They blow the top of a mountain off. They take a lot of equipment up there, scoop it up in the trucks, flatten it. Mountains that have been here way before people, It's I always say, like, it's a quote I think I heard from the Trillbillies. It didn't take long for humans to take something that took thousands of years to make and screw it up in a decade or a century. I feel like there's some coal mining stuff. I worked in a mine out this far too, by the way. I worked out a mine out in Logan County. Logan County is also where Aracoma happened. I don't know if you know about that one. There was a mine explosion that happened in West Virginia where a lot of people died.
I don't know about that one, and I do have a question here. Coal mining is a dangerous job.
Very.
And it's dangerous in a multitude of different ways. You're permanently injured.
Black lung.
I meant to say constantly injured.
Yeah.
Not permanently.
Yeah.
We're going to get to permanently. But first I want to emphasize the constantly part. I can only imagine the toll on the body every day of just, pounding and working in those conditions. To what you said, would you like to take it back to you said about black lung?
By the way, we're officially in Mingo County.
Okay. What is Mingo County?
Mingo County is the county that Matewan is in.
Okay.
I feel like we were supposed to turn somewhere and we didn't, but I'll have us turn somewhere else.
That's okay too.
Black. You want me to talk about black lung?
Yes.
Black lung is a condition that you get from breathing in coal dust, where your lungs just get full of coal dust, and kills you. You can't breathe. I've lost family to black lung. Especially if you're like one of these guys that worked in the mines for 30 years. It's gotten better because they, with like respirators, stuff like that, rock dusting, where you throw rock dust to dampen down the coal dust.
Interesting. To take it back, we've got the constant injuries.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the permanent injuries from the black lung. We've got permanent injuries from the constant injuries.
Right.
Broken bones, death from collapsed shafts. Hypothermia, just all of these different things. And are you getting any kind of like health care from these companies after you're working in a mine? Or
yeah, absolutely. Like that is one thing that's unfortunate though. Like one of the easiest ways to get health care in West Virginia is to
get a job in the coal mine.
Get a job, yeah, that can kill you. So yeah, it's like even non-union mines will give you health care and life insurance.
Okay. I wanted to find out, when was the peak and the heyday of the state of West Virginia? When were things going okay for the miners? When were all the mines pumping? When was the state really, quote, roaring economically?
So it's definitely like boom bust, but definitely in like the 50s to the 60s, there's like towns like McDowell County had like 100,000 people to where they're at now, which is 12,000 people for the whole county.
So 100,000 people in a county down to 12,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like whenever a coal mine shuts down, everything around it shuts down because no one's going to stores to buy stuff. Those places have to shut down, which in turn makes even less jobs. Then you start seeing like a mass exodus from these places. Like West Virginia's population is still in decline. People go to college, younger people go to college and leave. There's no opportunity here. We've relied on coal way too much.
So the jobs peaked in the 50s and the 60s, right?
Yeah.
How many people were employed, I guess, directly in mines? Not auxiliaries, or how many mine workers?
Oh, back then?
Or at the peak, I guess.
I don't know, man. That's a good question. I'd have to look it up.
That's okay. If you want to look that up, I would be a little curious on it. I guess another thing would be, were there... What was going on as people started to think that they were going to begin to close down? Or did...
I don't have service.
Okay. Well, another thing that we'll be talking about as to how the state struggles and is left behind. But yeah, so as things begin to shut down, when did they really start to get pretty tough and dire? I guess that it was was even. Go ahead.
As the most recent would be around the time Obama got in office. Here's the thing though, once it happened, people like to point the finger at Obama. But I remember being a kid when George Bush was president and listening to coal miners say that this was going to happen in this X amount of time. Because it has more to do with the market than anything. Because of fracking, gas has become cheaper. It burns cleaner. It's not as dangerous of a job. So nobody wants coal anymore. And the coal that we still do use, a lot of it we import it from other countries because they have the kind of coal that we need.
How many mining jobs do you think are left in the state now?
I think think it's like less than 10,000.
And it's safe to assume that the ratio is probably similar to that county's ratio, where before you were looking at 100,000.
Yeah, definitely.
If not larger.
I mean, to put it in perspective, West Virginia used to supply America with most of its coal for electricity at one point.
Wow.
And I believe I heard someone in your stream yesterday say that Wyoming does now, which I'm sure isn't like a lot.
The areas that I'm from, everybody, Mount Carmel, there's a town there called Centralia, Pennsylvania. The mine caught on fire maybe like 1981. Kept burning, and the entire town had to be evacuated, and it actually still continues to burn today. So the similarities between some of the rougher Pennsylvania neighborhoods to the West Virginia neighborhoods do run in line. We don't have any mountains though. Ours is just more, well, that's not true. We do have some mountains. Coming closer to the present, we got together yesterday. Well, we got together, I suppose, maybe 2 years ago on this little Twitch thing.
Yeah.
Where we do podcasts and so forth. And there was a long time of wanting to get together. You coming to Philadelphia, me coming down to West Virginia. Kind of didn't work out because of either life circumstances or COVID and protocols and so forth. Thankfully, both double vaccine over beyond months. So thank you, everybody. And, trying to do some beneficial things with having that ability to kind of go out. So this would be one of them. But we got together to go to the Poor People's Campaign Memorial March on Joe Manchin. And that was mostly around, for the People Act, a $15 minimum wage. There was some talk about water problems and so forth. You've been in West Virginia for a really long time, and there are a lot of issues with the state. And now that we're moving up to the present, where do you want to start with the state of West Virginia?
You're gonna turn left up here in about 0.3 miles on 65 South.
Okay.
Oh yeah, see, Matewan. Oh, I get so nostalgic when I hit this part, because this is gonna lead us into Del Barton, which is where I have a lot of family lived there. Went to church here as a kid. My parents were still together. Always state troopers around here. A lot of drugs around here is why, though. I'm not saying that that's a good reason, but it is what it is. Anyways, I wanted to mention this too when we were talking about like the health damages. Not only is it affecting the health of the people working underground, it affects the people who have to live in the areas where mining is happening. To the point now, what reminded me to bring it back up is you talking about like water, for example. I don't drink the tap water. You guys heard Katie Jones, Chef Katie Jones, that came on my stream. He won't drink the water. His parents would get mad at him if they caught him playing in the creek because our water is so contaminated. So it would like the Memorial March didn't really talk about that much, but the people did that we talked to, including Richard Ojeda, which is it was cool talking to him. Hopefully he can have some sort of future as a politician here. I heard rumblings that he has something planned. But anyways, $15 an hour minimum wage, I think is very crucial here. If you look at what happened during the pandemic, our economy actually got better because of stimulus checks than it did before the pandemic. To the point where like grocery stores were actually having like food. It wasn't as big as a food desert, like good food. The food pantries were stacked up so poor people could eat. And then the filibuster, it's, I feel like we got to stop the filibuster.
If I want to return to the filibuster, But first, if I may, and I don't mean to be too interjecting, I want to just stick on the local West Virginia issues at the moment, or the statewide issues. We can eventually, the filibuster will be an important discussion. Luckily, the roads that we have been on so far have seemed to be pretty good ones by my driving. Now, when I was coming from Washington, D.C. to your location, the highways were considerably more rough. And so the state gets a D- on water infrastructure. We've covered that one a little bit. The roads are usually pretty bad. The bridges are pretty bad. Your broadband services are bad. So what's going on with some of the infrastructure around here, and just overall in general, like what else does this state need that people seem to ignore?
A lot. Well, for one thing, talking about food, for example, there are currently, we had the number, I think it's like 143,000 West Virginians facing hunger, which is a substantial number considering that the whole state only has 1.8 million people. It would take an estimated 113 million to fix that. It's one of the things that makes me so mad. Whenever Jim Jones came in, or Jim Jones, they subsidized coal mines to reopen because they said they were going to bring back coal. So they took our tax dollars that we could have been using on things like roads, education, maybe just infrastructure in general, like the internet and cellular service is poor here. I hope people realize and understand how important internet is in today's day and age in order to succeed. It kind of goes hand in hand with education as well. But we use that money to reopen coal mines in a market that couldn't hold them, so they all shut back down. Mind you, the CEOs and board members of these coal mines got severance packages, while the workers, obviously didn't. It's just a mess. It's a mess. And then for Joe Manchin to be able to go up and say that we don't need a $15 hour minimum wage is disgusting to me. Talking about how it would hurt West Virginia having a $15 hour minimum wage. Or did I say 13? I meant 15.
No, I think you had it on the 15.
Okay.
I have become slightly quiet as I focus on all these hairpin turns on narrow roads.
Oh, it's going to get worse. Wait till we hit Del Barton. It's the same turns, but you're going up and down hills.
How is our arrival time beginning to look here?
We're about 22 minutes away.
Okay, so we are going to be able to roll the wheels right into the town, I believe. Yeah, these the similarities of like size of towns to Pennsylvania is, I have heard that Pennsylvania is the most densely populated rural state in the country. With what is this in front of us here?
That is a coal processing plant.
Yeah?
So this is where coal will go and they'll process it in order to be able to be burnt.
Okay.
I don't think it's in use anymore. I think they have to like maintain it and stuff. You gotta be careful because security will run us off of here. Oh yeah, don't
block the bridge. We can go up a little, right?
I wouldn't.
I have my headlights on. I got my seatbelt on. So this is what again?
No trespassing violators will be prosecuted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can stop it.
Like these areas are kind of. Now you're blocking the bridge.
Okay. I'm gonna check in with the visitors and ask. We won't block the bridge. I'll ask. Hi. My friend and I are making a little podcast talking about the coal mine industry of West Virginia. Do you mind if we just like sit here and talk for a little bit? And is there any way that we can drive up and drive back down?
No.
Okay, I'll turn it around.
Oh, okay.
All right, have a great day today.
Yeah, I could have told you they're not going to let us drive up there.
Well, it's better to ask
Right.
forgiveness sometimes than permission. So we're gonna do a little quick turn around here.
Yeah, the thing is like, I get it, because it's a liability, because these roads will tear your car up.
Really nice guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got.
I've had his job before, by the way.
You've had his job.
That's how I knew that we were not going to be let in.
Well, thank you. I guess you didn't have much of a choice of when you
You just kind of jumped out of the car.
Sometimes the GMC Jimmy doors are a little bit heavier to shut. Okay, so 22 minutes to go into Matewan. Talking about the current state of West Virginia on the lack of infrastructure. You know, you hit on how important internet is. You know, as internet, in my opinion as well, I think it should be, you know, an international human right. You gain access to Wikipedia or YouTube, so you can watch any person in the world can watch like a Stanford University lecture.
Yeah.
So having any kind of access to the internet is so incredibly important. And in your place of residence, I wonder if that's the police that was going, because we went onto that property. In your place of residence, you have one cell phone provider, and you get 5 bars of 4G. I have a different cell phone provider, and I get 0 bars of 0G. Yeah, and it is just one of those things. What is this little town, if you know?
I guess this would be part of Del Barton. Yeah, I think this is Del Barton.
So,
or as they pronounce it here, Del Barton.
How big is this town?
It's literally everything you just see off this road. There's not a lot of. There's some haulers. And
Was
stuff.
that it?
No.
Okay.
It kind of like, I think, encompasses a wide area.
Okay.
It's
What
not,
are hollers?
Hollows.
Hollows. Okay.
You know what a hollow is? It's like
Let's say that I don't, and
it's
the
like
audience
basically like a road. Like we're in like rural area. I'm trying to just define one too, so I can point it out to you. It's like usually goes along a creek. It's like usually like a single lane or a small road that comes off the main road that'll have houses down it. It's usually like in a creek or like a ravine.
If you see one, let us know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, see, welcome to Del Barton.
So that would be the main creek?
Yeah. Yeah. I can only imagine how contaminated that water is.
So that's do not touch, do not disturb, do
I wouldn't.
not dip toes in.
Yeah, you only want to swim in it. I used to when I was a kid.
Maybe what we will do is, if there's a member in one of our audiences that can guide us into like a water test kit or some type of thing, maybe on our way back we'll stop somewhere, scoop up some water, put it into like a little, you know, bottle or something that we have here, run a test on it, and just kind of see what we find.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
You know, might be something useful.
Luckily, where I live now, doesn't have as much as effect from mining. It still does, but there's not a lot of mines around Ripley. You know, like the closest one is like across the river in Ohio. That's a problem.
So you said the southern part of the state really dealt with the mine problem.
Yeah.
What's going on in the north and in the northeast? What's happening up there?
I mean, they still, you know, they're having the same problem with coal mines as well. But you have the university up there, which allows you to have a lot more business, you know.
Is that WVU?
West Virginia University, which is the
Where's
largest.
Marshall?
Huntington.
Okay.
Huntington is on the Kentucky, Ohio, it's like the tri-state area.
Canova.
Canova. Actually, yeah, Canova.
Kentucky.
And like where
Virginia,
you've been staying at, my place, they call that the MOV, which stands for the Mid Ohio Valley.
Okay.
We're really close to my grandmother's house. It's funny. So we came in a different way than I normally would have went because we missed that turn. I haven't gone this way in a long time.
It's a nice entrance into it.
Yeah, it's super nostalgic for me. Just thinking back
It's
at
super lucky for me.
I think about like.
You should try to angle the camera off to the left a little bit. Is there anybody behind me?
Be careful about pulling into people's driveways in Matewan. Could get you shot. That's good. There's no hood or anything.
Let's see that a little more.
Huh?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of show how we missed.
Pull into this church parking lot if you want.
No, it was a shame we missed some of the creek back there. Well, you don't get everything perfect.
Someone's cooking out.
Yes, they are. Nice little delicious barbecue smell going on right here for us.
All right, this is the town of Del Barton, like the township.
Okay.
Yeah, you wanna. Even the town roads are curvy. Man, it's just not the same from when I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, there would be people walking all around here. A bunch of little shops everywhere that kind of booming. Is this the right way? Yeah. Yeah, my grandpa owned a pizza restaurant in this town for 30 years. And well, Matewan. You're about to get in some wild roads here soon, dude. You think it was bad before? Just wait. What's another funny thing too? I don't think we'll see the school, but they built a new school up here. They basically consolidated a bunch of schools in Mingo County into one big school called Mingo Central. And it's built on a big mountaintop removal, which I guess is good. At least there's like, they didn't tear up anything else to make it, you know what I mean? Like the damage was already done. I find that interesting.
What was that Hatfield and McCoy trailhead off to the right?
Hatfield McCoy Trail, it's a big ATV, ATV road that goes.
Speaking of ATVs.
Yeah, you're gonna see ATVs everywhere because of the trail. It's kind of helped this area somewhat.
Oh, it must be a huge help to the area.
Yeah, it was a good thing when they put that in. I remember when they put it in.
I thought that I was seeing things, but that was a van in the forest.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I had to do a double take. That's what I meant.
Yeah. I've heard that, like, just like in eastern Kentucky, like 50% of the murders that happen there never get solved. Because it's so, like, isolated, you know? And I guess a lot of places they hide a body, huh? Now it's dark, but I could tell stories, but we'll save those for off stream. I didn't kill anyone, by the way. That sounded so ominous. There used to be a Taco Bell there, believe it or not. It's like a weird spot for a Taco Bell.
Before we roll into Matewan, thank you, audience, for sitting through all of this, you know, and the weaving and the winding roads with the weaving and winding conversation.
Yeah.
Interspersed of life story versus historical account. The Poor People's Campaign Moral March on Joe Manchin. Reverend Barber, Dr. Reverend Barber of the Poor People's Campaign, put together a movement and buses and groups and organized to bring West Virginians together in Charleston to march together and bring also people from the Poor People's Campaign from across the states. There were people from Ohio, there were people from Kentucky, there were people from Massachusetts. A couple drove 1,370 miles from Colorado to come to the event in order to get Joe Manchin to support a bill, the For the People Act, that ensures voting rights and ease of voting across a multitude of different categories. It has broad approval in the state of West Virginia, maybe 76% to 80% approval across both parties. A few people, during the March on Manchin were alluding to the fact that this isn't actually a bipartisan issue, this isn't a partisan issue. It's not a bipartisan issue. It's a tripartisan issue, meaning, and I'm flubbing through this, that independents, conservatives, and Democrats all agree. We can, that one can be another debate for a different day. In any event, coming together to march on Joe Manchin and all of the people coming from out of the state and fighting for the $15 minimum wage. The brief mentions of the water. One of the stories that really hit home, and something that I kind of must feel deeply for West Virginia, is with the lack of opportunities for a lot of young people. You either go to a coal mine to get your health insurance, or you go to the military to get your health insurance. And I have to imagine that there are very high levels of young West Virginians that go off to the military and then come back in a multitude of mental states and have to deal with all types of problems. And they don't even exactly need to be mentioned, of all the horrors and the pain that people are going to go through. But the jobs thing, and the no having jobs in the state, it's either the coal mines or the military. And that was a big hitting part of what West Virginia needs. It needs some type of something, be it industry, be it pollution cleanup, be it social care workers, be it redevelopment of the education, be it broadband installations, be it green energy manufacturing, be it upgraded rail systems, or any of these. I've been talking a lot about a march that was happening in your state. What were some of your own? I've got a huge line of traffic behind me, everybody, as I am not speeding on the fast roads. Having a great time chatting with all of you.
Yeah, if you don't know these roads,
it's more of, as I muse and meander, I don't go
because I don't want.
Down.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I also don't want to go tumbling off the side of a mountain.
We don't want to do that either. So yeah, back to you to talk about what the march was for you a little bit and what you want to highlight from it.
One of the things that meant a lot to me from the march was all the people that came in from out of state, in a place that I feel like is forgotten. They got to listen to what people here had to say, and they did listen. I appreciate Dr. Reverend Barber for, bringing this here. We need to go right up here. This is where I used to buy my baseball cards when I was a kid.
Right here?
Yep. They used to sell baseball cards in that gas station.
I just wanted to let the vehicle go past us.
For sure. No, it's a good call.
That way I can go back to just cruising. So to Charleston once again.
So yeah. I shook my train of thought. Yeah, appreciating all the people coming down for that. It's West Virginia's a mess, dude. I mean, what else can I say? To the point where, I hate...
we're at 55 going up a mountain. 55 into 95.
They widened this. Wow, this looks different. You got some big turns coming up, too.
Okay.
Anyways, yeah.